Hey everybody, I don't think you can see me yet because I'm getting a black screen. I'm figuring all this out.
I don't know.
Let's see.
It's not a black. Did you play this?
Yep, it's
Is
already
it
played.
still playing it?
I don't know.
How long was it?
Okay, there we go. We're figuring it all out. Let's see. Now, can you hear me? That's the question. All right. Good evening.
The chats are in the bubble.
Welcome to Throwback Thursday. I'm Kevin Williamson, your host, and we're throwing it way back because anytime you've got Dad, you've got the one who can throw it the furthest back. So I hope you're having a good Thursday evening. I hope you're being blessed. Debbie said the chats are in the bubble, but I don't even know where the bubble is. So I'm not always the savviest when it comes to all this stuff. All right. Well, let's see. So the point of the Throwback Thursday is to kind of just share a story from long ago, maybe early on in the music career and that kind of thing. So I just wanted to throw it back to when we first moved to Nashville. Debbie and I are originally from West Virginia, around Huntington, Canova area of West Virginia, and I know we've got some West Virginians in our viewing audience because you guys are always faithful to comment when we talk about that. But so we had moved. We were newly married, and Debbie was going to college in Nashville, and I was coming down to pursue my songwriting career. Not to mention, I was coming down to pursue a beautiful brown-eyed girl named Debbie, who had moved down to come to college. And then we got married. We moved to Nashville permanently. We married actually in 1991. And then shortly thereafter, let's see, I think maybe by this time, it was probably 93 or so, I had left my dad's band. I'd been playing with him, and he and I toured for many years together. And in that time, we always ran into bluegrass royalty. And most every weekend, we were playing with Ralph Stanley or Bill Monroe or the Country Gentlemen. And so my bluegrass folks will know all those names. But Bill Monroe is known as the father of bluegrass music. And he was quite the showman. He played the mandolin and he sang high. And like I say, we would see him most every weekend. And he knew my dad pretty well, but he didn't really know me. He was older by this time. He died in '96. So, he was well into his 80s. He was a little bit older by the time this story takes place. So, I'll show you a picture of Monroe. This is a portrait I have hanging in my office right here. Now, Monroe is the one dancing with the girl there, and he was known to grab a hold of a clogger or any woman that was available and do a little high step in there. That was Bill Monroe, and that photo was taken at his Bean Blossom, Indiana Bluegrass Festival that he ran for many, many years and owned that farm. Well, so like I say, the story that I wanted to tell you today takes place in the early 90s in Nashville. Now, I told you also that my dad was big buddies with Monroe. Actually, I've got a picture here of my dad singing with Monroe on the stage Bean Blossom stage. I'll show you this one right. All right, so in this picture, there's a banjo player that I don't know, and the gentleman playing guitar there is Mac Wiseman. Mac Wiseman, a great country and bluegrass singer. And then there singing beside Mac is my dad with the dark black hair. And then standing next to him with the Stetson on is Bill Monroe. He's got his mandolin there. You can barely see his mandolin. He's holding that down. But my dad was singing baritone with him, and then there's a fiddle player there that I don't know as well. But that photo hangs on my office wall as well. So, all right. So in the early 90s, there was a group. There's a songwriter named Larry Cordell, and his compadre at the time was a fiddle player named Glenn Duncan, and Glenn had played with Monroe. I played in a band with Glenn when I was one of my first bands when I was about 16 or 17 years old. And so Glenn and Larry had a band called Lonesome Standard Time, and they played every Wednesday night at a little club in Hendersonville, Tennessee called the Bell Cove Club. And it was mostly just a music venue. But I would go out. Larry and Glenn had hired me to go out every Wednesday and run sound for them. And so I would be out there every Wednesday night. Well, Monroe's church was Bill Monroe's church was just up the hill from that club. So when he would go on Wednesday nights to church, and then when he'd get finished with church, he would come down to the Bell Cove Club. Well, it was always a big deal when Monroe was there. You know, if he was in town, and he would be there. And the front door was just to the right. If you're looking at the stage, the front door was just to the right of the stage. So if you were looking at the stage, when people came in the door, you would see who came in. And Monroe would always come in, and he'd be waving. He'd be wearing that big Stetson hat, and he'd wave at everybody. And it'd be a big show. He'd make a big show of it. And then he'd go back toward the back and sit down and maybe hold court. You know, a lot of people would want to come and talk to Monroe. Well, when Larry Cordell and Glenn Duncan got finished with their first set, Monroe would get up and play. He'd play a whole set of music, and he wouldn't have his band there. He would just gather whichever musicians were around, and so a lot of times I'd get up and play guitar with Monroe. Now you got to remember, Bill Monroe was the father of bluegrass music. He's widely recognized as the father of bluegrass music. He originated the sound. He and Lester Flatt and Earl Scruggs, when Earl Scruggs showed up on the banjo, along with Chubby Wise on the fiddle and Howard Watts on the bass, that became what the sound that we now call bluegrass music. Kind of distinguished it from country music. So Monroe's the father of bluegrass. Everybody wanted to hang out with Monroe. So I'd get up and play guitar with him at this club. Well, he'd usually put together a band, and quite honestly, it usually wasn't all that good. But this one particular time, boy, he had a good band there that day. I want to say Billy Rose was playing the banjo, and maybe Mike Bubb was playing the bass, and he had a guy named Carl Franklin that would come and play fiddle with him most every Wednesday, and Carl was a good fiddler. And Monroe would play the mandolin. Well, I caught, Glenn Duncan was telling me on this particular evening that maybe he and Monroe and his guitar player were kind of on the outs. They weren't getting along, and Monroe might be looking for another guitar player. So when it came my turn to sing, boy, I just laid it on there. I really hit the lick, you know, and I did a good job. And Monroe, when I got done singing, he just stopped. You could tell he really liked it, and he looked at me, and he chopped his mandolin 2 or 3 times, and he said, "This is going to be my Monroe impersonation." He said, "You sing pretty good there, boy." I said, "Thank you, Mr. Monroe." Now you got to understand that Monroe's boys, all the bluegrass boys, they were clean cut. They were fresh shaven, and they had short hair, and they had on Stetson hats and nice suits. And Monroe said, he said, "You sing pretty good there, boy." And I said, "Thank you, Mr. Monroe." He said, "You might have to come play the guitar with me." I said, "Well, Mr. Monroe, I might just cut my hair and come do that," because I had long hair right down on my collar. Monroe, he just looked at me, he looked down, he chopped his mandolin 2 or 3 more times, and then he looked back up at the crowd and he said, "I'll cut it for you." And the whole crowd, yeah, just roared with laughter. He was always milking that crowd. So he was a funny dude. I'll show you a picture of me with my long hair. You might have seen this from earlier. This is me a couple years later with my bride singing. Look right here. Now that's I don't know if you can tell it or not, but that's I guess today that would be regarded as a mullet, but haven't changed a bit, have I? Well, maybe just a little bit. That was 30 some years ago, about 30 years ago, I guess. And so Monroe, I never heard anything more from him. He never offered me the job, but it was just one of those times when I was standing eye to eye with the father of bluegrass music, singing the music that he originated, and so it was really special time, and it was really a special night. So anyway, I just wanted to convey that story to you. I hope that you're enjoying getting to know a little bit more about our family, and I hope that you will join us again tomorrow. I think tomorrow it will be Favorite Fridays. So one of our crew will be on talking to you about some of our favorite things and hearing about your favorite things too. Just want to say God bless you guys. We love you, and we will